Here it is.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Bhuttam dhammam sangham namasami. So,
Tap,
well,
tap. No, this one. Yeah.
okay. Thank you. Yes, this morning we're going to look at a wonderful sutta called Avijjā, which is translated as ignorance here. And just like it's important to understand dukkha or suffering, and this is the path to liberation. It starts with the understanding of unwholesome or unbeneficial qualities. It's the same with ignorance. To understand ignorance helps us abandon it. And the Buddha often starts out with what we would call negative qualities. And then he talks about what we need to abandon. And then he talks about what we need to develop. So this is what this sutta is about. And it's a beautiful sutta because this is like the Buddha, before his awakening, he contemplated things and he contemplated the origin of things. And then part of the awakening process is looking at all the causal components and reviewing it one way and reviewing it another way and seeing how they relate to one another. So this is part of the reason why the sutta is so important, because overcoming ignorance is a big step. It's actually, if we completely abandon ignorance, then we're arhats. But just at least to weaken and to not let it dominate our lives. So this is Bhante Sujato's translation. And I also have Bhante Bodhi's available too, and we'll switch back and forth a little bit. So this is, we just assume this is the Lord Buddha speaking when there isn't, it's not introduced as someone else in the suttas. If it says Moggallana, Maha approached somebody, and then they had this conversation, then it was somebody else besides the Buddha giving the teaching.
Are you going to screen share, Aya?
Pardon me?
Are you going to screen share?
Oh, thank you for asking about that. Yes, I will screen share.
Down. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. All righty. Okay, so here it is. This is also I didn't say the number of the sutta. You can see it's in the Anguttara Nikaya. So it's AN 10.61 is how you would find it. So mendicants, it is said that no first point of ignorance is evident, before which there was no ignorance, and afterwards it came to be. So the Buddha is looking back with his supernormal powers as far back as he can see, and he can't discern a point where there was no ignorance existing in samsara. And yet it is evident that there is a specific condition for ignorance. I say that ignorance is fueled by something. It is not unfueled. So that's ahara, which is also translated as nutriment. Do I have it? Yes, it says it's not without fuel. It's not without nutriment. So on ahara is on negates the word ahara. And what is the fuel for ignorance? Cha aharo. And this would be cha is a conjunctive, so it's like and. And sometimes these words get combined like this. Ko charo chaharo avijja. And what is the fuel for ignorance? You should say the 5 hindrances. So the 5 hindrances are sense desire, ill will, restlessness, and remorse. It's sloth and torpor. It's drowsiness and dullness is another translation of that, and doubt. So those are the 5 hindrances. Fuel, they feed, they nourish ignorance. So it's good to consider that the importance of abandoning the 5 hindrances. And what is the fuel for the 5 hindrances? You should say the 3 kinds of misconduct. So misconduct, basically through body, speech, and mind. And that's the 3 kinds. And so there's like 10. We can get, when we get to the positive, we'll talk about what's the the positives. But basically, you know, breaking your precepts, and I think it's ill will, and there was
Where are you?
3 kinds of
Misconduct, body,
conduct.
speech, and mind.
Through body, speech, and mind, yes.
Mm.
But I'm just trying to think of what the mental misconduct is.
Oh,
For example, this wrong view is one of them, and ill will is another one. And we'll come to it. I can't think of it right now. Let's see. So there's 3 kinds of misconduct. So that's through body, speech, of mind, which supports the hindrances. So if you're having a hard time abandoning the hindrances, you might consider what might be fueling the hindrances. And what fuels the 3 kinds of misconduct? You should say lack of sense restraint. So this is indriya samvara. And I like to think of it as guarding or protecting the mind by, it's not like putting like, you know, physical restraint on some, you know, like to just bind something, the mind or but it's to protect, to like if you have a dog on a leash, then the dog is not going to get into trouble. Maybe you have one of those retractable leashes and it can run off a little bit, but you don't let it just come run into the street or get into people's yards or something. So I say lack of sense restraint is fueled by something. It is not unfueled. And what is the fuel for lack of sense restraint? You should say lack of mindfulness and situational awareness. So this is asati sampajanya. So it's opposite of sati sampajanya. So so situational awareness is an interesting translation for that. That's often translated as clear awareness. And what would be another word for Bhante Bodhi has
Bhante Bodhi has clear comprehension.
clear comprehension. So some people may be used to a different way of translating it. So not having that awareness. So this is like a double protection. If you have sati sampajanya and sense restraint, you're protecting your behavior through body, speech, and mind, but you're lacking it here. So then you have misbehavior through body, speech, and mind, which supports the hindrances, which supports ignorance. And what is the fuel for the lack of mindfulness and situational awareness? You should say irrational application of mind. So this is ayoniso manasikara. And yoniso manasikara is often translated as careful attention or wise attention. So this would be careless attention, unwise attention, improper attention. So I went online at Bhante Sujato's discussion site, Discuss and Discover, and there was a three-page discussion about the meaning of yoniso manasikara and how to translate it. And people were coming up with all kinds of ways of interpreting it. But yoni means womb. So going to the source. So they're not really considering wisely or carefully or considering the source of their behavior. What's bringing up the behavior through body, speech, and mind, or so they're improperly considering things. So irrationally, they're applying their minds irrationally. So I say that irrational application of mind is fueled by something. And what is the fuel for irrational application of mind? Well, you should say lack of faith. So that's sada. They lack sada. This is asadhyana. So I think, does it have a question mark here? Lack of confidence. Oh, confidence is a good way to translate it.
Sada, yeah.
No faith, disbelief, lack of conviction. I've also heard trust. Sada translated as trust. Confidence is nice. But the faith brings the brightness to it. So, but lacking that confidence in goodness, confidence in wisdom. And what is the fuel for lack of faith? You should say, listening to an untrue teaching. I say that listening to an untrue teaching is fueled. Oops, let's look at what untrue teaching is. Where's this? Listening to an untrue teaching. Hearing, not hearing. Okay, that's interesting. Not hearing the true teaching, not listening to the good doctrine. But I'm seeing sada again there. Sadamasa. Yeah. Anyway, It's hard, I can't divide up the word. I don't know if Yannika has a,
Sadama. It's Sadama, not Sada.
oh, Sadama.
Sadama.
Oh,
So
wait.
the
Oh,
true
okay,
teaching.
I wasn't seeing it clearly with
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
okay, thank you. Sadama, Asadama. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
Asadama. Okay. Um, so, and what is the fuel for listening to an untrue teaching? You should say associating with untrue persons. So do you have Bhante Bodhi's there? We're going to go over to Bhante Bodhi's translation and look at,
Okay, starting with thus not associating with.
yeah.
Thus not associating with good persons, becoming full, fills up not hearing the good Dhamma. Not hearing the good Dhamma, becoming full, fills up lack of faith. Lack of faith becoming full, fills up careless attention.
So that's Ayoniso Manasikara.
Careless attention becoming full, fills up lack of mindfulness and clear comprehension. Lack of mindfulness and clear comprehension, becoming full, fills up non-restraint of the sense faculties. Non-restraint of the sense faculties, becoming full, fills up the three kinds of misconduct. The three kinds of misconduct, becoming full, fill up the five hindrances. The five hindrances, becoming full, fill up ignorance. Thus, there is nutriment for the ignorance, and in this way it becomes full. Just as when it is raining, the rain pours down in thick droplets on a mountaintop. The water flows down along the slopes and fills the clefts, gullies, and creeks. These, becoming full, fill up the pools. These, becoming full, fill up the lakes. These, becoming full, fill up the streams. These, becoming full, fill up the rivers, and these, becoming full, fill up the great ocean. Thus, there is nutriment for the great ocean, and in this way it becomes full. So too, not associating with good persons, becoming full fills up not hearing the good Dhamma, and the five hindrances becoming full fill up ignorance. Thus, there is nutriment for ignorance, and in this way it becomes full.
So it's almost like there's a potential for this ignorance there. I mean, there's a certain degree of ignorance, but then it's even gets worse. And that's leading us to perpetuating harmful behavior in the world. So we'll go back to Bhante Sujato's translation. It's nice to see two ways of translating because sometimes it helps broaden our understanding of what's being said. Because of English, a lot of times just like the word Yoniso Manasikara, it was a compound word, but people were really trying to figure out a one-word English translation, and nothing was like really working well because it can encompass the whole thing. So it's just kind of an understanding of the vocabulary, what the vocabulary is pointing to. So go down to, so all the way down to knowledge. So the opposite of ignorance is knowledge. I say that knowledge and freedom are fueled by something. They're not unfueled. So that's Vijja Vimutti. So there is a nutriment for this ahara. They're not ahara. They're not unfueled, or there is a nutriment for them. And what is the fuel for knowledge and freedom? You should say the 7 awakening factors. So the 7 awakening factors. So that's mindfulness, awakening factor, investigation of states, awakening factor, energy, awakening factor, PT, which is often translated as rapture, awakening factor, passaddhi, awakening factor, which is translated as serenity or tranquility, samadhi, awakening factor, which is translated as immersion, a lot of times immersion, and then upekkha, which is equanimity. So these are the 7 awakening factors, which are supports for awakening, and they develop strength and become factors of awakening. So they have a nutriment, they have a fuel. 7, the bojjhangas, the bojjhanga. Satta is 7. Bojjhanga. Elements of awakening. Factor of awakening, of enlightenment. Factor of enlightenment. Elements of awakening. Element. That's interesting. I say that the 7 awakening factors are fueled by something. They're not unfueled. And what is the fuel for the 7 awakening factors? You should say the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation. So this is Bhante Sujato's way of translating Sati Sampajanya. Satipatthana, I'm sorry, Satipatthana. Satipatthana, and that's, it's interesting. It says attending mindfully, being present with mindfulness. So the Chattaro is a 4, and Satipatthana is often translated as foundations of mindfulness. And if you want, that's the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Very briefly, first foundation is the body. Second foundation is feeling. Third foundation is mind. And then the 4th one is phenomena. And we would be spending weeks on the 4 foundations of mindfulness if we wanted to get into detail. So, which we may do someday. So this is the support for the awakening factors to fully develop the Satipatthana. It's essential. I say that the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation are fueled by something. They're not unfueled. And what is the fuel for the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation? You should say 3 kinds of good conduct. So these, keeping your precepts well, not, it's through body, he would not kill, steal, or commit any kind of sexual misconduct, any kind of sexual activity that would harm another being, including yourself. And then there's 4 courses of speech, if I can remember all 4. It's of course, refraining from lying, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from divisive speech, and
Sampapalapa.
then useless speech, refraining from useless speech. That's the 4 kinds of good conduct, according. So you'd be truthful, you'd be saying things that were meaningful rather than useless. You would speak in a way that would bring people together rather than divide them, and you'd be speaking kindly, gently to others. And then there's 3 kinds of mental conduct that are wholesome. It's the loving kindness rather than the ill will, having a heart of loving kindness, and right view. And I said, oh, I know what it is. Rather than sense desire, it's renunciation.
Kama, yeah.
It's nekama. Okay, so I've got them now. So it took a while for it to percolate up, but there it is. So these are supporting the satipatthana, which supports the awakening factors. So our good conduct through body, speech, and mind is really essential on the path. And I think if you do anything, if you work with the satipatthana and you're working with one aspect really well, it's gonna also include the other aspects, all 4. So it might seem daunting, but it is possible. And also with the anapanasati, the mindfulness of in and out breathing fulfills all 4 satipatthanas. So don't worry. There's hope for all of us all. Okay. But we got to keep our sila well. That's what this is telling us. And I say that 3 kinds of good conduct are fueled by something. They're not unfueled. And what is the fuel for the 3 kinds of good conduct? You should say sense restraint, indriya samvara. So that's really important to support. It makes a lot of sense if we're getting distracted by sights, smells, tastes, and then we're allowing the greed to come up for them, then it's more likely for us to misbehave. Or if we allow our anger to come up with because we're seeing things that are unappealing, then we're more likely to say or do something that's cruel or not so well. So just guarding and protecting our mind and not allowing greed and hatred to overcome the mind because of sense contact. That's basically what this is about. And then here's the sati sampajanya, the mindfulness and situational awareness, or mindfulness and clear comprehension, I think is how Bhante Bodhi translates it. Yes. I say that mindfulness and situational awareness is fueled by something. It is not unfueled. And what is the fuel for mindfulness and situational awareness? You should say rational application of mind. So this is careful attention. We're going to the source. It's just a difficult word to translate. I say rational application of mind is fueled by something. It is not unfueled. And what is the fuel for rational application of mind, you should say faith. Well, this is quite interesting, isn't it? If you think about it, that the sada, the trust or confidence, maybe this gives us the courage to look at things carefully, to investigate, to apply our minds wisely, rationally. Otherwise, we don't care. Maybe we're just careless. So we're not applying careful attention because we're careless. We have no faith. We have no trust. We don't, So I say that faith is fueled by something. It's nourished or nurtured by something. It is not unfueled. And what is the fuel for faith? You should say, listening to the true teaching. So this makes a lot of sense. You hear the Sadama. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was getting it confused with Sada.
That's why compound words are so tough. You have to really
Yeah.
divide them.
Yeah, it says the Sadama. When you hear the teachings and it really rings in your heart, resonates in your heart, then the Sada arises. I say that listening to the true teaching is fueled by something. It is not unfueled. And what is the fuel for listening to the true teaching? You should say association with true persons, sapurisa. Sapurisa samsewo. Association with good men is how they translated it, but can include other genders. So would you mind reading the, you could read it here.
Or
Do you want to read it over?
Do you want Bhikkhu Bodhis? Or?
Yeah, I have Bhikkhu Bodhis here.
Thus, associating with good persons, becoming full, fills up hearing the good Dhamma. Hearing the good Dhamma, becoming full, fills up faith. Faith, becoming full, fills up careful attention. Careful attention, becoming full, fills up mindfulness and clear comprehension. Mindfulness and clear comprehension, becoming full, fills up restraint of the sense faculties. Restraint of the sense faculties, becoming full, fills up the 3 kinds of good conduct. The 3 kinds of good conduct, becoming full, fill up the 4 establishments of mindfulness. The 4 establishments of mindfulness, becoming full, fill up the 7 factors of enlightenment. The 7 factors of enlightenment, becoming full, fill up the true knowledge and liberation. Thus, there is nutriment for true knowledge and liberation, and in this way they become full. Just as when it is raining, and the rain pours down in thick droplets on a mountaintop, the water flows down along the slopes and fills the clefts, gullies, and creeks. These, becoming full, fill up the pools. These, becoming full, fill up the lakes. These, becoming full, fill up the streams. And these, becoming full, fill up the rivers. And these, becoming full, fill up the great ocean. Thus, there is the nutriment for the great ocean, and in this way it becomes full. So too, associating with good persons, becoming full, fills up the hearing of good Dhamma. The 7 factors of enlightenment, becoming full, fill up true knowledge and liberation. Thus, there is nutriment for true knowledge and liberation, and in this way they become full.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So now we have some time at the end here. If there's any questions or comments? I can turn it back to Bhante Sujatos. What's lovely about his is the Pali English. And it's also interesting how he chooses to translates some of these words. I'm more used to Bhikkhu Bodhi or Bhante Bodhi's translations. But yeah, it does. Sometimes I get resistant to I hear a different translation and it's and then it starts to grow on me. I go, oh, I guess I can kind of see what he means. Situational awareness. Actually, that's pretty good. Rational application of mind. I don't know. So there was, like I said, 3 pages of discussion about how it should be translated. This is Yoniso Manasikara. So anyway, do either of you present have a comment or question about this sutta?
I feel like it dovetails really nice with the sutta where he's telling Ananda that the whole of the holy life is good friends, like that's the whole of the holy life. And it sounds like that's what this is getting down to. Like at the base, if you don't have good spiritual friends, you can't build up to the other levels. So
Yeah. What's influencing us? Who's influencing us?
mhm.
And this is part of what the scariness in our world is. Who are we hanging out with? What is being what situations are the children encountering around the world? Because that's nurturing their development. And is their development heading for wise attention and clear seeing? Or is it heading towards um, uh, consumerism and unrest and hate? So yes, it gets down to who are you hanging out with?
Yeah, so I think we do have a choice, especially as adults.
Mhm.
And I think that see the sapurisa is sometimes translated as the superior man or something like that. Good persons, true persons. So we have a choice,
Mhm.
or who we want to listen to. We may have to be in contact with people that are not really on the right path, but this associating, is it sewa?
Yeah.
Parisa sewa.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it can also mean like serving.
Yep.
So doing service for them, or so you have a close association with somebody who is a leader and you're doing service for them. So maybe volunteering to help them on their campaign or something like that, who who are who are you believing, who are you like it becoming a part of a group and serving the purpose of that group, so
Yeah.
also when the time of the Buddha, there were many teachers and wanderers, and who you would go to hear. You maybe wander around and, oh, this teaching doesn't sound quite right. And then you go to another one and, oh, this person's magnificent. And there's all these people that are excited and they're very charismatic. And then you get swept away. And then you realize, oh my goodness, they're going in the wrong direction. So you have a choice. You can say, okay, I'm going to keep going. But the sada, the teaching, you have to really listen to it carefully and see, is this wise? Is this truthful? Is this leading to harm to myself and others, or is this leading to the benefit of others and myself? And this is what the Buddha said to look out for when you're listening to a teacher. And then when something, the beauty of the Dhamma is that apparent here now. A lot of it we can see. It's just like pointing something out that's been right in front of us all along, and we say, oh, yes. Or that's actually how that works. Oh, so then this faith arrives in, and then we start applying our minds rationally or carefully or wisely. So one of those Yoniso Manasikara translations would work. And he says radical attention, the translation, proper attention, prudently applying the mind, wise reflection, focused attention, attention to the source. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Attention to the source. So understanding causality. So yeah, so starting out with the good friendship, like Kat was saying. Do either of you have anything more to say or ask?
There are a lot of factors to think about. If anytime we feel like we are not making a right decision or affected by ignorance or any of those, then we can look back on lots of steps to see where we are failing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so wonderful to see like so many options.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And how they build on one another. It appears quite linear, but as you're saying, you can see maybe you're weak in one point, so you still need to work on that point. But all of them are mutually reinforcing. You're not gonna I'm not gonna stop listening to
To the good Dhamma.
to the good Dhamma and just go entirely on sada or give up my sada once I've gotten to the rational. I'm getting to a rational application of mind. I don't need that sada stuff anymore. So they all build on one another. Yeah, so there's a lot of things we can look at. That's a really good point. Where are we? What do we need to nourish? What part of this framework do we need to nourish?
It almost feels a little daunting though. I was like, okay, just think about it like drips though. Remember, I think Bhante Bodhi's version is so like poetic. Like
Yeah.
I really liked that one. But the idea of the drips. So each drip, one drip at a time, but it does you look at like the pyramid you're building and it seems very, very tall, but one drip at a time. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's a gradual progress that we're making, and it's developing over time. And it's like I like to think of gardening a lot, and so you have there's steps you take to grow your garden, but you can't force the seedlings to grow any faster than they're going to grow. You just have to do that work of watering and fertilizing and weeding, And this is the weeding process is understanding the other side of the pyramid, dismantling that one.
Yeah, it's right effort.
Yeah. Anything else like to share? So I'm going to stop the screen sharing. And I'm going to stop. And so we'll just maybe close here, and I can just go. I'll stop the recording in a minute.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi. Buddha. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namassami. Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangham Namami. So thank you all.